What's good, everybody? Welcome to another exciting episode of Full Circle. I'm your host, as always, Harmon Jr. Please feel free to find me at Harmon Jr. on all your favorite social media websites. And people, as always, we have another exciting show for you today. I've been going down my list of people that I'm like, man, look at this great Twitter personality person who I interact with. They need to be on the show. And finally, they are on the show. Please give a warm welcome to Ty Galiz-Rowe. Woo! Go crazy, people. How are you doing today?
Thanks. Damn, that was a very hype intro. I'm good. It's been a busy work day, but better that than being bored. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm down here in Houston, as people know. We survived the freeze earlier this year, and now we're on hurricane watch because it's hurricane season. And I don't know, tropical storm, whoever was in the Gulf of Mexico. And Monday, they were all like, oh, fire and brimstone, they end the days. Schools, businesses shut down, fire and brimstone. And then the night came and went, and, nothing happened. It's up. Guess what, people? The Texas grid went out again, and half the houses in Houston were without power. Luckily, I had power this time. But we're not here to get political, people. I'm just telling you what happened. Those are simply the facts.
That's true. That was just a timeline of events.
That's all I'm doing is providing the truth, which can be controversial even in today's world, but I digress. We are not that type of podcast. But thank you, Ty, for joining me. And Ty, just in case people at home don't know who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, so the who are you question is broad, but I am a freelance video games writer and editor in the journalism / media side of things. I am the editor in chief and founder of Uppercut Crit, which is a little indie game site that you may or may not have heard of. And then I also, just freelance around the web. Like Odell said, I'm on Twitter. Probably too much. So that's largely where you can find me. And yeah.
That's pretty good. I'm not gonna lie, anyone who can create a gaming website in today's space and have it be any level of successful, when you have the juggernauts out there that will, I assume, reign supreme until the end of time, it's just incredible. So, round of applause to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it for sure.
And as someone as well learned as you being the editor in chief, I have some great topics for you that's going to need your expertise, your great opinion, if I do say so myself. Because people, guess what? This week we are going to be talking about a lot of nonsense. I'm sorry. I know. We had a lot of nonsense episode last week, but I can't help it.
It just turns out there continues to be nonsense.
It's just
the games industry said more nonsense.
It said we needed more. So we're going to be talking about Epic versus Apple. But this time, unlike all the other times, it's finally over. I know we talked about crazy things like the Xbox never making profit off their consoles, and about how games aren't games anymore. Looking at you, Roblox, you're an experience. Okay, whatever you say. But before that, we're going to be talking about Big Body Thor, Thick Body Thor, Big Daddy Thor. I don't know, Bear Thor. I don't know. He's a large male, and he is the god of thunder. Thor.
To kick off this conversation, he's honestly a little bit less hairy than I feel like he should be.
Ooh,
speaking of the bear thing, just because when you look at his, I saw somebody on Twitter post an edit that they were like, it's weird that he doesn't have chest hair, and somebody edited chest hair on him, and I was like, you know what, that does make more sense, because he has this huge beard and all of this hair on his head, but then his chest and tummy are just very smooth.
I know we're not there yet, but I have a quick thought on why that may be. He is the god of thunder. He swings that hammer. Maybe just gets sizzed off.
It just gets burnt off.
Yeah, he protects the lion mane. The money makers up here, but she's like, man, down here battle.
I love I really hope if they do if they ever address it, I hope they say something like that. Just something really, really off the wall about like why that would be. Because honestly, it would work. It's like the thing in the first game, right, where the dwarves explain why they are always wherever you are.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a very silly explanation, but I like that they were like, yeah, we know people are going to wonder, so we're going to give you a very silly explanation for it.
Exactly. That could be like, your chi is in your gut, in most forms of martial arts and, philosophy, that's where, the majority of your chi is. So, that lightning chi is up there just singeing off all the hair.
He's got lightning titties, and it's just this Nordic waxing.
But before we get to Nordic waxing, hashtag copyright, all that good stuff, we're going to be talking about Deathloop. Yes, people, Deathloop is officially out. It's one of those games, I always think it's fun when a game's been in development. I mean, all games have been in development for a long time, but you've known about it, you've seen about it, you've seen the trailers and stuff, and then it's finally out.
It's been in the E3s and the PlayStation showcases and the whatnot.
Yeah, because, okay, this is a fun fact. When Hades came out, I mentally thought it had been out for like at least a year. People were like, Hades, Game of the Year, just came out. I'm like, Hades came out like 2 years ago. And I'm like, nope.
I mean, to be fair, it was out in early access for like a year. And it was just like, I think originally it was only up to the second boss in Hades, and that was all people could play. So like, you weren't wrong, technically.
All right.
It was out. It just wasn't the whole thing.
All right, you ready for me to blow your mind?
Yes.
I always tell people this. Think about this. Ark, the dinosaur game, had a sequel announced with Vin Diesel, and that game technically hasn't been released yet. Not the sequel to the first game. Ark has just been constantly.
Oh yeah, Ark is still in early access, huh?
And it has a sequel already. And the game to have yet to release has an announced sequel, and I'm just like that.
That's bananas.
Yeah, that's crazy. But like the crazy game industry, Deathloop came out and accolades, people, 10 out of 10s. Best thing since sliced bread. Arcane's done it again. But they have done it again. So, in case y'all didn't know, a little news came out after the game release. We could all play it. And, you think, what could this game done wrong? Apparently, so, as you know, at the end of games movies, you see the credits. Well, apparently, a number of developers who worked on the game's names were not listed in the credits. And you're thinking, Odell, how could that be? Well, they were either tacked onto a special thanks list, but, just to save, I'm not going to drop any actual names, people, just because on this podcast, like, I don't like to point fingers or send, hate towards anybody, because that's what's going to do. So if you want to know the details, you can look up the finer points. But people on Twitter and the community, developers who worked on the game, from, writers to QA testers, things of that, cited that because their contract had ended with a company that was working on the game, they were no longer in the credits. And then, and then one person came up, more people came up, and, Ty, I just keep thinking, what is it about this past 2 years that the game industry can't seem to get right with treating their employees correct?
It's the thing, right, of like all of these issues that keep popping up around the labor side of the games industry are systemic, right? Like, this isn't new. There was a kerfuffle about this exact thing with Red Dead and with Red Dead 2, as far as like developers not getting credit because they left or their contracts ended or whatever. And there's like multiple, I'm looking for it now, there's a Kotaku article like just about this phenomenon. And it's just like a weird thing that they've been allowed to do for a really long time, and like people are only just now kind of being like, oh, that's a really weird thing that should not be allowed to happen. And it's just a bummer that, if you work on something, your name should be on it, whether you stick around or not, in my opinion. But, unless you do something like really, really terrible, like. But, I mean, like, your contract ending, I don't think should be enough of a reason for you to not get credit on something you did.
Yeah, and so the part I find about this interesting is because a lot of people in defense of this practice, if you will, for lack of a better term, they said, well, we don't know the legality of it. And I'm like, see, well, let me stop you there, because I'm going to go way, way back to the early days of Naughty Dog. So one of the
Mhm.
biggest, we all know Crash Bandicoot, but one of the biggest controversies of Crash Bandicoot was who is attributed to creating Crash Bandicoot. And one of the artists on the team back, the team had to be, back in those days, they had teams of like 5 to 6 people who worked, pretty much nonstop 24/7. And his thing was he wanted to be credited with the creation of Crash Bandicoot, but they're like, no, it was a team effort, not one person created him. And what I say is the legality of the situation is he wanted, reparations, so to speak, his due or credit. And, I'm like, okay, that's where legality lies, in terms of who created a thing, who gets the glory, so to speak. But in terms of when you worked on something, I'm like, no, that's pretty much cut and dry. Whether that was 2 minutes or
Yeah.
200 hours, that's not an issue of legality at that point. So I'm
Yeah,
like,
I
that's
mean,
a
there
moot
no one
point.
is saying like I should own Deathloop the IP.
Yeah.
Like it's I was a QA tester and like I worked 200 hours making sure that the bugs in this game were mostly squashed. Like I I'm 100% with you.
Yeah, and so the theme. Okay, so I've had a reoccurring theme since the start of 2020, and it has ironically taken so many turns. Originally, this turned out to be like what black gamers faced in the video game industry and stuff like that. But in terms of women, LGBTQ plus, just people being mistreated, there's this common theme, and I'm not down in the game industry. I love it. I want to be a part of it. I want to change it for the better. But it's always touted as this uber liberal safe space, like Hollywood's evil and kidnapping kids and doing evil stuff, and this company over here is evil, using child labor, but not the game industry. This is a beacon of hope for all others to follow. And it's like, it's not. I mean, because nothing's perfect, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Nothing is ever perfect. And again, like the issues are systemic and like they affect multiple industries, right? Like the issues that happen, like there's a reason like they say like, oh, games is having a Me Too moment. It's because the same thing happened in film. Like, these things are not isolated to just one field.
yeah, and I guess, my point is, I guess we all collectively, I feel like in the game industry, need to get to the point where like we need to wake up and be like, look, we are not special. Like,
Mm-hmm.
not saying we are horrible, but we've always told it that that's the world's problem. These problems stop. The buck stop here, and that's clearly not the case. Clearly, like you said, they're systemic. We suffer from every issue that every other industry suffers from, and I think what makes ours is particularly bad is that people like to pretend that they don't exist here, and that's why you have these problems. Like Blizzard, like this wasn't their first rodeo with getting caught up what they did. The fact that the state of California had to step in and be like, no one's gonna do nothing about this. No. I guess we'll do. Our
Mm-hmm.
state's literally on fire, but I guess we need to handle this. And I
Yeah,
think, yeah,
it's pretty bad when like a state government is like moved to take action. Like when the state is like, time to do something relatively quickly.
yeah, this is just personal opinion. This isn't even like a journalist thing. I'm just like, I feel like it's so petty though, because it's like working on a group project in school and telling the teacher this kid didn't help, even though they did. It's like you don't get extra bonus cookie points. You don't get like a better grade.
Yeah, I don't really know what's to be gained from not including those people. It doesn't seem like it's like that much of a resource drain to like add extra names to the credits you're already making, but that
So I'm gonna ask you an interesting question. Why do you think now that the game industry is just now finding about all these, or how about this? Here's a better question. Why do you think the game industry now collectively, the zeitgeist, finally cares about these issues that one could argue have been brought up constantly and just kind of just swept to the wayside?
I think it's because the landscape has shifted significantly, right? Like as much as I'm not gonna ever be the person who's like the games industry is great and everything's fine because it's not. Like especially for marginalized folks, like there's a lot of stuff that still is really a bummer and that sucks for a number of reasons. But when you look at the fact that like who is in charge of the different sites now, who is working at the different sites now. It's totally different even than when, like 4 years ago, like when I was first starting out, like Waypoint was the most diverse outlet. And now, the Gamer has several trans women that work there. IGN has multiple like women, people of color, like queer folks. GameSpot, is run by Tam, who is a very, like outspoken Muslim man. Like so much is just like different in that way, and like not in the way of like representation, like yay, people of color are there, that's good, but like in the way of like the now we have folks who are finally in positions to like force the issue of caring, I think, in a lot of ways. And there are also just enough people, I think, around too to be vocal about it that like, things kind of have to change.
Get with it or get lost. I got you.
Pretty much. I mean, that's the thing, right? Is like the games industry on the media and the development side revolves so much on like the disposable labor of like young people. But like the thing is, like the more of us who are like diverse who manage to get in, like, the more that there are being like get with the program or get out. Like,
yeah, because at the start of 2020 when we start to see, I say major change only because like it went from like a we should to like we will.
Yeah.
Thunderous roar. But there's things I still feel like were just lip service, but then there's real change. Like for example, Twitch, when Twitch started suing people for the hate rates, I was like, whoa, slow, how now, Brown?
Yeah, I was surprised by that too, but I'm glad they did it. I hope they continue doing it.
Yeah, I always tell people, sometimes it's not that like, oh, I'm seeking anyone to go to jail or like, be beat in the street, even though.
No, you just want them to stop being jerks.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people know, like, okay, they're like, okay, I'm not gonna go to jail, but if I get sued, get my account banned, all this stuff, it's like that's just a hassle that I'd rather not go through for something that realistically, I mean, there's certain random acts of hate, violence, or just pure jackassery, if you will, that I'm just like, bro, like, I come home, I've had a long day, I just want a cup of lemonade. How do you find the energy to do this? Like,
yeah. I'm like, now it's going to be the question of like if they're willing to spend thousands of dollars to do it, to fight this out in court. So
oh man, I'm pretty sure it's going to be that one guy that's going to like be like, I'm going to die on this hill. But hey, you could be, pretty much a president director of a company and you can die on a hill and quit your job. That's all I'm going to say on that. But point is, things is a changing, as the people like to say.
Yeah, I think slowly but surely there's stuff's happening.
Yeah. But so here's another thing. So this is less of the game industry, more people in general, but it's game industry related. And as you so eloquently put, it's about thunder titties.
Yeah.
So, in case y'all didn't know, God of War 2 Ragnarok is coming out. God of War Ragnarok, new God of War 2 Ragnarok, not related to the other God of Wars. I get so confused when you reboot a series, but it's
did they call it? Is it God of War 2 Ragnarok or is it God of War Ragnarok?
See, it's God of War Ragnarok, but people keep saying God of War 2 but you know they mean God of War Ragnarok. But I'm like, there is a God of War 2. Yeah, because
I feel like to me it makes so much more sense to just say Ragnarok because then you're like, oh yeah, the Norse one.
Yeah.
The one that's not in Greece.
Yes. It is like, it's weird because when someone says God of War 2, I know which one they're talking about. But my mind keeps going to the original God of War 2 because I'm just like, words matter and mean something. But whatever.
To me, I just feel like you should just say Ragnarok because then I immediately know that you're talking about that one.
Exactly. Exactly. It reminds me when Pokemon Black 2 and White 2 came out, and people will be like, Pokemon Black 2, Pokemon. I'm like, just say White or Black 2. Like we don't need the like, we know what you're talking about.
Yeah, like there's not any other games that I can even think of that are just called White or Black. So
yeah,
people are silly.
Yeah, but so God of War Ragnarok came out, and they released the trailer. It was cool. You know, we got, you know, our first major a woman of color in the series. And when I mean by woman of color, clearly, because technically we have had them, but you know what I mean, people. And you thought, and I really,
I guess in this series as a whole, technically,
yeah.
But the like 2.5 women you see in God of War 2018 are all white ladies.
You know, I say technically, someone's gonna be like, well, or there, you know, the goddess of whatever is of whatever origin, and it's technically, I'm like, you know what I mean. You know what I mean. We're not gonna have, you know, a world race class. You know what I mean. It's clearly obvious, and don't hit me with that whole high fantasy, this is what everyone is nonsense. I digress. We're not here for that. We're not here for that conversation today. But they showcase Thor, you know, the god of thunder, who exists in mythology, and people lost their minds because he's a thick boy. I won't even say fat. Like, I mean, yeah, he could be considered fat, but it's just like, he's not, I don't think he's, I don't know. I don't know where to start this. One, people had an issue because the MCU rules the world, and, you know, Chris Hemsworth, is that him? That's yeah, you know, he's all, you know, pretty boy and whatnot, you know, people love him for his gorgeous good looks.
And also people had a really virulent reaction to his fat Thor too.
Did they?
Yeah, people did not like the fat Thor in the MCU either. A lot of people were really shitty about it. And that fat Thor is like not even that fat. That fat Thor is like dad bod Thor.
Yeah.
Like he's like a little bit thick, like, you know, a little bit of Quaker oatmeal, not the whole cookie, you know what I mean? Whereas like the Thor in God of War is like I don't mean this in a pejorative way, but he is fat. He has like a layer of body fat over him that you can see, but he's like a big fucking scary looking dude. Like he looks very angry and like he could really fuck you up.
So let me point out the obvious. One, God of War is based off, you know, the Nordic mythology, and this depiction of Thor is based off, you know, his description from legend, texts, poems.
Also,
lore.
like, presumably, like, what men at that time, like, would have looked like.
Yeah, like, so I saw a lot of people be like, oh, he's not blonde. He was never blonde. Like, the people like that annoy me. Like, when it's
this
like,
this ties into the what you were talking about earlier though with I can't remember her name, but the new woman of character color, because people pull the whole thing of like, oh, like Vikings weren't black or there weren't any like non-white Vikings, and like that's not true because the Vikings were like colonizers, so they were all over the place.
Yeah, they went, you know, destroyed your village and go die or join us, and people went, okay, I'm not gonna die. All right, you're a Viking. You're a Viking. You're it's like being a pirate. Like a pirate isn't.
Yeah. Also, I feel like people forget that Europe and Africa are like this far apart on a map. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's like a sea between them. They are very close. They like interacted a lot. Like, the historical accuracy argument is like kind of baloney for its own reasons, but like if you're gonna make that argument, like at least be correct.
Exactly. For example, people, we all know what the Roman Empire is. We learn it in school. That's pretty much like world history because they touched so many countries that you probably learn it at some point. And the Roman Empire was like 30 countries. You really think they're just all some white dudes walking around being like, yeah, I'm Roman?
Especially because like when you think about like people in like Eastern Europe too who are darker complected anyway, like, but they're still white or they're still European, like, what do people think is going on there? Like,
I don't know. So Thor's a big boy, and you know, yeah, the argument and so okay, vanity in games has always perplexed me. Just it has vanity in general, but vanity in games, because people are like, this is what this character should look like in this setting. I'm like, based off of what? Like when,
Yeah.
like if you remember that Aloy thing, it was like, this is what she should be looking like. Based off of what? Like, what are you basing this off of? Like,
I mean, every game, it's just like really weird to see the like apparent body dysmorphia that's like very rooted within the gaming community. Like, not even just for women, right? Because like there were so many men with opinions about what Thor's body should look like. Like, really, really strong opinions about that. And so, like, because like, you get used to, especially, like, as an AFAB person, right? Like, you get used to the expectations that, like, men in general, right, have for, like, women's bodies in video games. But, like, this showed, like, how bad it is just in general. Like, these people just have, like, real messed up perceptions of like what bodies should be kind of across the board, and it's a little bit scary, honestly. It's like, have you not ever seen a real person in your life?
So I'm not downing anyone here. Like I'm okay. Like I'm not like, I ain't got no six pack or nothing, but I'm just like, what do you look like? Or if you were like some personal trainer, 0.5% body fat, a pinnacle of fitness, I mean, that doesn't give you a right to think like that. But I'll be like, okay, your reality shapes your world. There's some Sigmund Freud reason to you having that opinion. But I'm like, bro, let's be real. If you're, obese, like the majority of America is, at least, I can't speak of any other country that's not America, but in America, most people are obese. That's just a statistical fact. Fight me. I don't care. So I'm like, statistically speaking, you're probably obese. So what you complaining about? Like, I don't get it. And on the second part of that, like you said, the whole body dysmorphia thing, because I kept seeing the comment like, but he's a god. I'm like, what is that? What does that have to do with anything? I mean, yeah, Zeus would turn into a cow and F other cows. Clearly these people don't care.
my friend Ben Roswell was tweeting about this, and he was talking about the fact that like people just have such a hard time with the idea of like a god choosing to be fat. Like, people cannot just like, because right, like most gods have control over like how their physical forms appear and stuff. Like, people just can't wrap their minds around the idea that like, someone who's all powerful or perfect in some way would choose to appear to be fat. And it's just like, but like, why wouldn't they? Like, he's a big old dude who like drinks. Like, all of the stories about Thor are him just like getting stupid drunk and like doing wild things. Like, so why would he not want to just be like a giant wild looking man?
And I mean, also, again, like if you read mythology, like truly dissect it and read, like I said, Zeus would turn into a cow, do other cows,
or a swan.
Yeah, and even do people as an animal. If that's your shtick, you can have it. But my point is, they did stuff. I mean, there's a god of gluttony. I just feel like a god of gluttony would be like, I'm the god of gluttony. I'm gonna look gluttonous. That's my MO.
Yeah. I also just like, gods are expressions of like how humans understand the world. Like, there's a reason why gods look like people. So like, following that logic, why would they then not look like people? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make sense to me why people have such a hard time with that. And I get it's like, oh, well, no one would choose to be fat. But it's like, I mean, like, people do choose to be fat because you can, like, work out or whatever and, like, make that the primary focus of your life. But, like, a lot of people just, like, don't care to. You know what I mean? Like...
Yeah, and if we look at real-world cultures, too, a lot of cultures, back when kings and dynasties of that nature ruled the world, they were usually big because that was a sign of your wealth. Like, I am plump.
Yeah, that you're not starving to death.
Yeah, like, I am plump. I have so much money I can eat as excess. And my body is a representation of me eating in excess. I am big because, I mean, sad but true, poor people starve and are skinny and, thinly little things. Like, if you go back and actually, again, people study cultures, read things, like... so for back in the olden days, back when it was just this is purely about survival. Thicker women were the prize, the objective to get, because they meant they could survive childbirth. A woman with thick thighs, big breasts, she can feed her children and stuff. They were considered, the better women because they could bear children and do other things. And I'm just like, so if you look, people, truly, like this fascination with not being on the bigger side is completely a new thing in human society, like objectively speaking. So I'm just like, I don't get it.
Well, especially because, like, when you consider, too, like, going back to the whole historically accurate thing, which, again, there's a lot of reasons why that argument is fraught, but, like, the only reason that, like, bodybuilders and, like, people who work out now can look like that is because of the machines we have. Like, people used to not be able to have, like, defined muscle groups because we didn't have, like, isolation machines. So you were just kind of, like, generally strong. So, like, people have this super warped perspective of, like, what strength and, like, physicality really looks like when it's, like, super not that all the time.
Exactly. And I'm being, this is the writer in me. I'm just being like, okay, if this person is a god, they probably don't care what mortals think, first and foremost. So, like, why would they even subscribe themselves to the notion of the mortal standard of beauty? I mean, for all Thor can be like, this is the hot sexiness right here. If you don't look like this, ha ha ha.
I mean, he does have sons, so, like, presumably he did get it.
I mean, that is also accurate. He did get it. The man bore children.
Yeah, he has, like, at least 2 sons. So,
yeah,
I'm just saying. I'm pretty sure he has a wife, too. So, like...
back when I was reading the historical accurate, people were like, yes. So this was the argument, like, yes, he drank the ocean down a level and stuff, but he's a god, so he could have not been fat and done that. And then I'm just like, okay, here's my, if we're going with that argument, then by that logic, he shouldn't have to be buff either. He could be a twig, right? If what he does physically to himself, whether it's working out, eating, etc., then that lets me know, unless he probably wasn't born, 6-pack, that means he should just be, in my mind, just an average looking fella. Then he shouldn't be ripped either.
Well, it's also so weird, right? Like, there is not this level of outcry about Baldur in the first game, right? Even though that man, like, I could break that man in half. Like, he is so small compared to everybody else in that cast. Like, just physically. And granted, he's still, like, a brick house in a lot of ways in those fights. But, like, when you compare him to, like, Kratos, even, he's, like, a teeny tiny little man. And nobody was like, that's bull. He should be gigantic and jacked. But then with Thor, they're like, this man is gigantic and jacked? How dare they? This dude is pardon my French, but he's a shit brick house? No. We don't want that.
House.
Literally. Like that, like, I tweeted about this too. I was like, because, like, I saw someone being like, this isn't what a warrior looks like. And I was like, bro, if that man hit you with that hammer, you would die. Like, I don't know what else. Like, if you saw a man like that in real life coming at you, you would be so scared. Like, he's so big. Like, just in every way. You can just tell that he is, like, there to like, ruin your day. Like, he just looks like that. Especially when you know the context of, like, how they kind of frame him in the first game. It's just, like, this dude is scary, like, and y'all are worried about, like, whether he has pecs?
So I'm not claiming this to be true, but my friend had an interesting theory, and he was like, people have power fantasies, in games and stuff, and he always says that women have power fantasies and male have power fantasies, and he thinks that's crazy because the second they don't fit their power fantasies, they go into connipship, and, like, that's his, like, he was a psych major, so he went to, like, more detail of that. I don't know. And I was like, what if that is that? What if it's like people really can't play a game? They're like, oh, I'm strong. This is me. What? This is not how I powered myself, wrecking the world.
I mean, the thing with that is too, like, I could absolutely buy the power fantasy thing, but the thing is, like, Thor's not even the character you're gonna be playing as. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, you're gonna be playing as, like, this traditionally ripped, like, giant Kratos, like, peak toxic masculinity man. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's... Like, Thor is a side character. He's, like, in theory, probably the antagonist, right? But, like, he's not the guy that you're driving around the game. So, again, weird to be, like, so upset, I guess, to me. Especially because a lot of the bigger dudes that I know were like, it's really nice to see this because we never see our body type depicted. Because he is a more realistic. Like, he's not, like, cartoonish or anything. He just, like, looks like a giant brick house dude.
You know, I'm wondering how many people would stop playing Halo, like if Master Chief took out his suit and he was like just like a scrawny guy, like, you know, just like you're like a very average built guy. I'm just like, dude, imagine Master Chief like with his helmet on, like just being like super ripped, and they're like, no, keep the helmet on, don't break the illusion.
I mean, that's the thing, too. Even if it is a power fantasy thing, like, even if you were to be, like, playing as Thor, like, are there not enough other games where you play as a giant, like, traditionally attractive, like, ripped dude?
Apparently not. Apparently not. You know, I've always been the one to die on the horse of, I would like some different hairstyles and a skin color that doesn't make me look Indian. Because I swear, they think they go like one level black. Like, I can't even call it black, like one level into brownness. And I'm like, and they give me like this weird.
And they don't do like, the lighting is all weird too, so it like never looks right for any skin but like the lighter ones.
Yeah, I'm just like, man. But yeah, I mean, this is the hill people under. I really don't get it because, like you say, you brought up a great point. I even think you're not even playing as this dude. You like screen time. This dude might get like 20%. You know, a low ball number. You know, outside of the actual boss fight, I assume. You know, maybe he's gonna.
Like, it doesn't, like, it matters that much that like a chubby dude is gonna be on the screen.
My thing is, okay, how many people truly cared about Thor? Because a lot of people came up with like, oh, you're ruining my image of Thor. I'm like, come on, bro. Come on, be real with me. How often do you wake up and be like, damn, I'm going to be like Thor today? that
Thinking about my boy Thor. Shout out to him.
Yeah. I don't know. It's such a weird thing for me because as horrible as this sounds, I want everyone who like has a big just like heart attack about this. I'm like, post a picture of yourself. And I'm not saying that to be mean. Like, I just want to know. Cause like if you post a picture of yourself and you look like Thor, I'm like, what is your issue?
Yeah, I just don't like I just don't get why people care. Is the core of all of this. It's just like, I mean, other than like people are just like wildly fat phobic. It's just like I don't understand why this bothers you so much.
I don't know. I wonder how. You know what? I wonder what would have happened if like the original Metroid came out during the internet somehow, and like Samus was finally revealed to be like a blonde woman. How many people would have like? What would have been the internet's response back then? I wonder. Assuming it was the same.
I mean, if that happened now, it would be a 50-50 between men over-sexualizing her, men hating her, and then white women girl bossing her. So it would be bad. It would be not fun for anyone. Is the summary there?
I like how you went. Like I was waiting for like, and then here's the good. You're like, not all bad. Every point bad.
I cannot imagine a good outcome of the Samus gender reveal party in 2021. Every gender reveal party is bad. I don't know if you knew that, but they usually end up ending in explosions. So.
Oh man. I I really, you know what? I'm pretty sure if we went back in time and like we tried to have that conversation, like we you know teleported ourselves back in the time, and we're like, how did you feel when you found out Samus was a woman? People be like, who? Met what?
Yeah, it would definitely be like a very specific niche of people who would have opinions about that.
It's like, bro, I'm too busy over here. I don't know, getting a high score on, I don't know, Frogger or something. I don't know the dates games came out. People.
Galaga.
Yeah, when did the first Metro? I assume like '89 or something. I don't know.
Oh, I have no idea. A long time ago now. It's been like, I feel like it's been at least 20 years, but
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. So Pokemon just turned 25. So that means Metroid has to at least be 30, right?
Damn.
That would make sense. Because every Nintendo franchise is turning like 30, 35, 31 since like,
Yeah.
man, she's older than me. Okay, yeah, wait, yeah, okay. I am 31. Metroid came out before I was born. Therefore,
Damn.
there we go.
I'm 26, so Metroid is Metroid is like lapping me at this point.
Man, what? You know that's so weird. Being these ages, because I'm not gonna lie, there was a part of me that felt like gaming was my thing, but now it's so mainstream, and I'm like, oh, my thing is so mainstream. But that's cool and it's fun, but it hurts when like, you know, people are like, my first game was insert PS3 title, and I'm like, that what? Your first game was Halo? What? Halo 3.
I think it's tricky because like I have such a weird like I had such a weird getting into games. Like my first console was a Super Nintendo, but I only had like 4 games for it. And
That's
like
reasonable.
so yeah, so I had like Donkey Kong and Mario were the only like mainstream games I had for it, and then it was like Battletoads and an X-Men game. And so that was just like all I played for like years. And it was just kind of the same for like all of my consoles. Like I had very few games for any of them, and most of them were just like weird things that like when I went to the store I was like, ooh, that looks neat. Which is why I like played a ton of Bloody Roar on my PS2 because I liked the weird anthropomorphic animal men. I thought it was fun to have them beat each other up. But yeah, so at this point I'm like, yeah, like honestly, like however you get in here, like whatever, man. Try to have fun.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, some people's first game in today's world is actually mobile games, like dead
that's
serious.
true.
Like, you know, they'll be like, "Oh, my first game was insert this game on my phone," which brings us to our next topic: Epic versus Apple. Yeah, we got there, people. So if you didn't know, Apple and Epic have been going at it, and it basically there's a lot of legality to it, but it basically boils down to, if you play a game on an iPhone, you can't have in-app purchases to your store. Anything bought for the game has to be bought through the Apple's purchasing system, because a whole bunch of legal jargon. And Epic was basically like, nah, bruh, if you're playing Fortnite and you want some V-Bucks, you're buying from us. You ain't buying them from Apple or going through none of that. And Apple's like, yo, slow your roll. What you talking about? It don't work like that. And then long story short, people with money said, oh, we about to find out. And they went to court. And this court case has been entertaining, but it has finally come to a conclusion. And a judge has decided, you know what, Epic, I side with you. Screw the mega overlord that is Apple. If someone wants to, if they can download the game on an iPhone and they can buy stuff from your store in that game, you make your money. And Apple was like, well, I'll be done, got it. So what does this mean for games, people are probably wondering? One, ideally, if you make a game, an app, you put it on the iOS store, you make more money and people can make in-app purchases that directly benefit you. What does that really mean? Honestly, I don't know. Like, that's what it's supposed to mean. How's this going to work? How's Apple going to retaliate with games on the iPhone going forward? No idea, but it is going to have some big old waves.
Yeah, I think the thing that's important to note too is that the other part of the ruling here was that even though like they basically said like yeah, like Epic is like technically in the right here, like they still found Epic within breach of contract. So Epic has to pay like 30% of the revenue it got from the like Apple revenue basically. Um so which is like $3 million, which is probably not that much for Epic because Epic is like filthy rich, but they didn't get away completely unscathed in this.
This is true. This was probably a giant moral victory for them, in the sense that, they won, quote unquote. And, I really wonder, so going forward, I'm like, is Apple going to take this out on other developers? And, and when I say other developers, I mean the small people. Clearly, someone, Microsoft, Xbox, Nintendo, they don't, not that they don't care, but they got enough money to be like, bro, whatever. Like, here's your money, leave us alone. But, like, because, I think of someone like Supergiant Games, where all their games now are pretty much on iOS. I'm not sure if Hades is, but it would make sense if it is because all the other ones are. So
I don't think Hades or Pyre are yet.
Okay. But
Pyre is weird. Pyre has a whole thing about it being ported. It's like a whole thing. But Hades maybe, who knows?
Yeah. And this is always the interesting fact because you always hear this talking point that games is new. It's the new media. It's still young. Compared to all these other industries. And so, but this is one of the few times where I truly agree with that statement because sometimes I feel like people just say that to say when in terms of like artistic relevance. But this is kind of like, yeah, no one's ever. You don't watch a movie on your phone and then have to, buy DLC or buy bonus point director's cut or, get the subtitles pack or I don't know, anything you could do with a movie. So I always find it interesting when games as a medium is new in the sense of legality where we cross a threshold of no one really knows what the answer is. And I think this is the first time we saw that happen in like a big monetary way. Because usually it's like, we don't know. We're not going to worry about it.
Yeah, I don't even know. It's just weird. It's because in theory, right, the ruling makes it so that like anybody who has an app on the iOS App Store will be able to have their own in-game like payment system or in-app payment system, right? But like it's like you said, like how is that gonna work from like a development standpoint for a lot of people? You know what I mean? Like that's probably not an easy thing to just like whip up. So then do you figure out how to do that or do you like, deal with the more convenient thing of, letting Apple eat into your payments? Like, I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know either. It's just one of those things like, we'll just have to see it. What I'm hoping is Apple's just like, hey, you know what? We just had a personal beef with Epic. This really wasn't us about trying to monetize, squeeze every nickel and dime out of developers. This was one rich company yelling at one other rich company, and that's where it's gonna end. But if I'm being completely honest, I doubt it. I doubt that's how the buck stops here. Especially with Apple Arcade, I'm really, because I'm just like, Apple Arcade, I'm not saying it's trying to be like its own micro console, but I feel like it's trying to be its own micro console. Like,
I will say Apple Arcade is very good. IMO. Apple as a company, not great. Apple Arcade, very good. IMO.
Oh, really?
$5 for a lot of video games.
If
you have Apple or if you have an iPad and then like one of the backbone controllers and then a subscription to Apple Arcade and Xbox Game Pass, You truly can just like play most things.
I see. You know, I want 15% of that check Apple is writing you right now. I'm just
I
saying.
wish, honestly, like they should be sponsoring Monty and I from Uppercut because we talk about them constantly. Because we just, like, it's just really nice. Like, you can just play a lot of stuff if you have those two services and, like, an iPad.
You know, I'm still stuck in my old man ways of I can't game on my phone. I'm not saying it's not viable. Like, back when I used to have this conversation 5-10 years ago, I'd be like, okay, no, that's stupid. You can't even enjoy the game properly. Now you can. Like, I see people playing Genshin Impact on their phone, and it quite literally blows my mind. Literally blow. I'm not talking about with a backbone, just with the, like, phone controls. I'm like, bro, how? Like, I don't even know. But, you know, the iPad thing, that interests me because I couldn't do it on my phone. One, it's too small. Two, it's like I get calls, texts, etc. And I can't be dealing with that while trying to game. It's hard enough dealing with that while trying to game on, like, the computer. And it's like, I got to answer this. But the iPad thing, maybe when I get stuck out of my old man ways. I'm still very much I need physical copies guy. I know
I have embraced the digital future.
No,
I know that it's problematic. I know that there's all of the conservation. I know. I'm not saying it's morally correct. I just don't like to have objects. The older I get, the less things I want in my home.
So earlier today, my friend texted me. He was like, "Oh man, Deathloop's dope." Blah 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 blah. And I'm like, "Oh, you got it?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And remember I told you, I said at the beginning of the show we had the hurricane watch, so a lot of stores are closed. And he was like, "Oh yeah, man. I know you like your physical copies. Too bad Best Buy's closed, huh? That's exciting." He's like, "Look at me. I just downloaded it at midnight, and since I didn't have to go to work, I've just been playing. So sucks that you need to go to the store, huh?" And I'm like, "Bro, I get what you're saying, and forget you. I will go to the store and get my copy."
That's like a weird thing to like gloat about. Like, I prefer digital games. I'm not above. Like, I have several physical Switch games. And I did have physical PS4 games, but I don't anymore because I just gave my PS4 away. But like, and I have a digital PS5 because I was like, I'm not gonna buy physical games for this, and I know that about me. Like, I'm truly trying to never leave my house. So, like, between that and like the fact that, right, like when we do reviews and stuff, like you get a code. Like they don't send you the game physically. So I was like, I truly have no reason to pay more money for this disk drive that I'm not gonna use.
No, that is fair.
But I'm not gonna be out here like, ha, my way of doing this is better. Like, I don't care. I get why people like physical things. I just don't.
You know, I want to thank you for that. You were probably the first person who has not mocked me in my old man ways.
Oh, I don't care. I get it. Like, people have, like, I don't know, like, feelings about their objects and their collections and stuff. Like, I don't, but, like, I get that that's a thing for people. Like, you're not out there serial killing with them, so I don't care. You're not, like, beating people to death with your physical cases, so, like, I don't care what you're doing.
I mean, someone might call a pimp slap with one before, but I digress.
I mean, that's fair.
That didn't happen. Or did.
That would also be fair. But that's not a murder. That's just a hit.
Yeah, but it's you know, he was mocking me in love, but yes, people still like. I've entered this weird era that only started recently, where I tell people I physically buy games, and they give me a look like, "Oh God," like almost if they feel sorry for me, like you know, like if I had like a, you know what, I'm gonna go stand in a corner and have a sign that says, "I still buy physical games," or like a hat, and see how much money I can get.
I mean, like, it's also just like if you're gaming on more of a budget, right? Like, and you don't have access to something like Game Pass, let's say, like, physical games are nice because there's still a lot of avenues to trade them in and like get more value out of them, you know, whereas like digital, you're just kind of stuck with them. Yeah. So, like, I get it. I used to do that. I just, at this point in my life, I'm like, no, Marie Kondoing everything. Get it out of here.
A fun story was back when it was the I believe it was the special edition Master Chief collection and or the special edition Halo 4. I'm not sure which one. But I remember I got it. I was excited back when, Halo was still cool for me. And I got it and came with, the fancy case, the steelbook, all the usual bells and whistles. And I go to open the game and there's no game. It's just like the download code. I'm like, bro, I would have not paid $100 for this if you told me it was just gonna be a download code and I still like that doesn't even make sense to me.
That doesn't make sense to me either. Like what you're doing. So it's just like to have the case. Like you just display the steelbook, but you don't get the game. Like I mean, you get the game, but you don't get the disc.
Yeah,
that's very weird.
Yeah, I can't remember which Halo. So if you know, you can feel free to let us know. But I remember the feeling of such betrayal, and I know there's other games that have done that. But the reason, and I get what they're saying, like, but you want the case, right? That's what you want. I'm like, yes and no, because I
think you want the game too. You want the disc, because. Yeah. I mean, if nothing else on a practical level, right? Like when they delist a game from the store, you can't play it anymore. But if you have the disc, you can.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure, you've had this feeling, right? You're looking for something to play. You're like, oh man, let me look at back when there wasn't digital games at all, when all games were physical. You're like, oh look, insert what was the game where you got to beat up people with your anthropomorphic bloody men?
Oh, Bloody Roar.
Yeah, Bloody Roar. You're like, Bloody Roar, fond memories. Love this. You go to open it and the game ain't in there. It's such a heartbreaking feeling. Like, it's like terror, confusion, and then like you turn to Sherlock Holmes because you're like, in the console? No. In the case? No. In another case? No. And then you're just like panic mode from that moment on. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, no, when I open a game, like even it's like I need the disc in there. I can't sell a Mario 64 box for $1 million. I gotta have the game in there too. How much did it sell for? Like something ridiculous? I don't know.
It was a lot of money. I don't remember the exact amount, but like a lot.
Yeah, it really makes you just want to go back in time and be like, Mom, every game I want, buy me one copy to keep and then one copy to play. Trust me, mom. Listen. I will buy you houses on houses on houses in the future. Just trust me.
See, I couldn't do that because my taste was all the weird games, so it was not anything that like anybody would pay lots of money for. Now it was the largely reviled Battletoads.
You say that, but I feel like those games might be worth more. So, I had a copy of Mr. Mosquito for the PS2. I got it at Cons of all places. People, yes, Cons, the like store that doesn't exist anymore. And I really love Mr. Mosquito. It was fun. You got to play as a mosquito. You're like in these Japanese people's house, and it was like they would come home from work, and then you have to like relax them with like sedatives, and then go drink their blood, and then do mosquito things.
Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, not like vampire. You're a mosquito, so you land.
I just love. This is so involved. This mosquito's just like got a plan.
Yeah, like you had to learn their daily routine, like over the course of the level when they were most susceptible to get
hitman mosquito.
Kinda, honestly. But
putting the sedative in the cup with your little mosquito hand, tightening your little mosquito tie.
The crossover people don't know they want. But long story short, my mom ended up selling it, and now that game's worth like thousands of dollars. Apparently, English versions of the game were rare even when it came out. So and now I could have paid off the mortgage of a house with it if I still had it, but I don't. I am sad. So who knows? I say those because everyone had a copy of Mario 64, but that game had to be like never touched by hands for it to be that price. But hey, if you just own a copy of insert random game that no one really knew existed, hey, goldmine.
Yeah, true. I don't have any of my Super Nintendo stuff anymore because I was dumb and sold my Super Nintendo in college. So I have none of that, but alas.
Alas, such is life. But that brings us to the end of the show. I'm sorry, dear people. I know. We've had a great time talking about wonderful topics like the legal system and Thunder Titties and everyone's favorite, especially America's, institutionalized problems.
Systemic issues.
But Ty, I want to thank you for joining me. And real quick, where can the people find you, keep up with you, see all the great things you're doing in this wonderful world?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. You can find me on Twitter at Awothkeeper. It's exactly how it sounds.
I'm sorry. It sounded very like reality TV sitcom, and like you do like the death stare to the camera. That's exactly how it sounds. No explanation.
Just nope. That's it's pretty straightforward. Not a lot of depth to that one.
Oh, and make sure y'all check out Uppercut. Cool stuff there.
Please, Uppercut Crit on Twitter or uppercutcrit.gay on the internet.
The interwebs. You're already here, bro. Go ahead and do that. And as always, you can find me at Harmon Jr. All your favorite social media sites. Just Twitter. I say that, but honestly, just Twitter. You can find me other places, but I don't interact with people there. Unless I knows you. And you can find the show at FC Podcast 23 on Twitter and on Patreon at Full Circle Productions. And if you want to throw $1, support the show, any amount of money, I don't care. You can join the wonderful Patreons like Gabriel Cleveland, Ryan Fraser, Blake Rice, Rachel Coleman, Gabriel Garcia, and all the other wonderful people there that subscribe. But these people on the tier where I get to say your name. So if you want me to say your name, it's $5, honestly. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you gotta do 100. No, you get $5, you get your name said. So go them. But as always, people, that's the show. Oh wait, you can like, share, subscribe for free. I forgot to say that last show. Yeah, like, share, subscribe for free. Leave a review. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on Amazon Music. We're on all that good stuff now. Everywhere podcast is found. But as always, have a great week and be blessed. Bye.